Useless old woman. That is exactly what Jessica screamed at me in the middle of Robert's birthday dinner. She screamed it in front of everyone, without a shred of shame. The entire table froze. My son-in-law, Andrew, dropped his fork onto his plate with a sharp clatter. Aunt Beatrice, my sister-in-law, stared at her plate as if she hadn't heard anything, or perhaps as if she wished she could disappear right there. The silence became so heavy and dense that I could distinctly hear the hum of the refrigerator motor kicking on in the kitchen. Jessica crossed her arms over her chest and turned her face toward the window, wearing that little smirk at the corner of her mouth that she always wore when she wanted to show she had won. I didn't tremble. I didn't cry. I didn't scream back. I looked her right in the eyes, stood up from my chair with all the dignity I had left, and walked out without saying a single word. But inside, I felt every inch of that humiliation burning me like a hot iron branding my skin. You know that feeling when you realize that everything you've done in your life has been thrown in the trash? That none of it mattered? That you have become a burden, a nuisance, a problem to be solved? I raised Robert alone after his father died, fighting against all odds. I worked 12 hours a day doing alterations and tailoring to pay for a private school and guarantee him a future. I sold my wedding ring to buy him his first car. And now I was this to them, a useless old woman. But what Jessica didn't know, and what Robert didn't imagine either, is that I had a box tucked away in the back of my closet. A box filled with documents, with receipts, with undeniable proof of everything they had put me through over the last 3 years. And 6 months after that disastrous dinner, when I placed that same box on a desk in front of a lawyer, the silence that fell over the room was very different. Stay with me, because this story is just getting started. I met Anthony when I was 19 years old. We got married 3 months later and were immensely happy for 22 years, until the day he had a heart attack in the middle of his shift and never came home again. Robert was 16 years old. He was a sophomore in high school. He dreamed of studying engineering. I was a seamstress. I worked from home, making custom dresses for parties, repairs, hems, adjustments. It wasn't glamorous work, but it paid the bills and put food on the table. When Anthony died, I didn't have time to fall apart. I buried my husband on a Thursday, and by the following Monday, I was already sitting at my sewing machine at 6 in the morning. Robert needed to finish his studies. He needed to get into a good university. And I was going to guarantee that even if I had to sew until my fingers bled. And that is exactly what I did, without ever complaining. There were days when I pulled double shifts. I sewed all morning, ate lunch standing up in 5 minutes, and kept working until the early hours of the morning. I slept 4 hours and started all over again. And during the holidays, during Christmas season, I spent weeks without seeing the light of day, locked inside working. Robert got into a state university, one of the best engineering programs, civil engineering, just like he always wanted. I cried the day the acceptance letter came. Not in front of him, to spare him the embarrassment, but I cried in my room. But college isn't free. There are expensive materials, transportation, food, decent clothes to wear for presentations, and I covered absolutely everything. When he was in his junior year, a golden opportunity appeared for an internship at a large construction firm. But he didn't have a car. How was he going to get there every day? Public transportation took over 2 hours. I had kept Anthony's wedding band stored away. Solid gold. It was the last material thing I had left of him, besides the old photographs. I sold it. I took that cash and put a down payment on a used car for Robert. A 2010 Ford Focus, silver, a little dented, but it ran perfectly. He was overwhelmed with emotion. He hugged me, weeping, and promised me that one day he would pay me back tenfold, that I would never want for anything. I believed him. I believed him blindly. After Robert graduated, he landed a good job quickly. He started making good money. He bought a small condo, furnished it tastefully, and for the first time in my life, I could breathe a sigh of relief. My son was on his way. We had lunch together every Sunday without fail. He came to my house, ate the pot roast I made, and we talked about everything. About work, about future plans, about life. It was during one of these Sunday lunches that he told me he had met a girl. Jessica. I was happy, sincerely happy for him. Robert deserved someone by his side. He deserved to build a family of his own. They dated for a year. She was polite to me. Not very warm or close, but polite. She smiled, said hello when she arrived, and answered courteously when I asked her something. When they got engaged, I offered to help with the wedding costs. I didn't have much, honestly, but I had something. I paid for the catering. It was $5,000 that I took from my savings account, money I had been setting aside for years for an emergency. "Mom, you don't have to do that," Robert said. "Son, I want to. It's your wedding." Jessica thanked me, but the way she thanked me, I don't know. There was something about that thank you that didn't feel real. It sounded empty. After the wedding, things started to change. Slowly. So slowly that at first I thought I was imagining it. The Sunday lunches became increasingly rare. Robert would call saying they had a commitment, that Jessica had scheduled something, that they were going to her parents' house. When they did manage to come, Jessica spent the entire time glued to her phone. She barely ate. She made a face like someone who was there out of pure obligation, counting the minutes until she could leave. Once I asked her if she hadn't liked the food. "It's fine, Martha," she replied without even looking at me. But I saw it. I saw the way she looked at her plate as if I had served her dog food. And that was when I started to feel it. That sinking feeling in my stomach, that something was changing drastically, and not for the better. 3 months after the wedding, Robert called me. He said they were renovating the condo and asked if I could stay with them for 2 weeks to help out. "Of course, son. You know you can count on me." I went over there. I tidied up the guest room, bought new sheets so as not to be a bother, and left everything spotless. The first day, everything was fine. The second day, too. But on the third, Jessica walked into the kitchen while I was making coffee. "Martha, since you're here not doing anything, could you wash those clothes in the hamper? It's just that Robert and I work all day, and it gets hard to keep up." I washed them. I didn't complain. After all, it was only 2 weeks, and I wanted to help. Only then came the dishes from lunch piling up. Then she asked me to sweep and mop the living room, then to scrub the bathroom, then to clean the kitchen windows that were smudged. One weekend, while I was ironing shirts in the living room, I heard Jessica talking on the phone with a friend. "Oh, girl, it's great. My mother-in-law is stuck here. The house is sparkling clean, laundry done. I don't even have to worry about a thing. It's such a relief." She laughed. She laughed as if I were her unpaid maid. Robert was sitting right next to her on the sofa and said absolutely nothing. When the 2 weeks ended, they didn't mention anything about me leaving. I stayed a whole month serving them. When I finally left, Jessica didn't even thank me properly. She just gave a little wave from the car window as they drove off. A few months later, it was Jessica's mother's birthday. They threw a big party in a rented hall. 60 guests. I was not invited. I found out because I saw the photos on Facebook. Robert was there, smiling from ear to ear, hugging his mother-in-law. The caption read, "Family reunited." I called my son the next day. "Son, I saw the photos. You didn't tell me about your mother-in-law's party." "Oh, Mom, it was just a more intimate thing. Just Jessica's family, you know." "And aren't you my family? Am I not your family?" Silence on the other end of the line. "Mom, don't be difficult. It was just a party. Just a party." He said it as if it didn't hurt, as if it didn't matter that I was excluded. I hung up the phone and sat in the living room for an hour, staring at the wall. That was when I started taking notes. I grabbed an old hardcover notebook I had and wrote down the date. I wrote down exactly what happened. I wrote that I wasn't invited. I wrote down the excuses Robert gave me. I don't know why I did it at that moment. Maybe because I needed physical proof that this was actually happening, that I wasn't going crazy or inventing things. The next humiliation came at Christmas. The tradition in our family was always to have Christmas Eve dinner in my living room. Ever since Robert was a little boy, I cooked the whole dinner, set the table with the nice tablecloth, lit candles, decorated everything. But that year, Jessica announced that dinner would be at their condo. "It's more practical, Martha. That way you don't get tired or have to worry about anything. Just come over and enjoy." It seemed strange to me, but I went. When I arrived, I realized it wasn't a family dinner. It was a party with their friends. Loud music, young people drinking, appetizers bought from the supermarket. I stayed there, sitting in a corner of the sofa, completely invisible. Jessica barely spoke a word to me. Robert spent the night laughing and drinking with his friends. At midnight, no one stopped to give me a hug. No one toasted with me. No one looked me in the eye to wish me a Merry Christmas. I left there at 2 a.m, alone. No one offered to drive me home or call me an Uber. The next day, I wrote it all down again in my notebook. And then came the worst part. I had a crocheted quilt that my mother had made. It took her 2 years to finish. It was white, with delicate flowers, every stitch made by hand. I guarded that quilt like a holy relic. One day, I went to visit Robert. The door was unlocked. I walked in and called out. No one answered. I walked to the master bedroom, and I saw it. My mother's quilt was on the floor, bunched up, stained with paint. They were painting the bedroom walls and had used my mother's quilt as a drop cloth to protect the floor. I stood paralyzed, staring at it. When Jessica arrived and saw my face, she didn't even flinch. Oh, that? I found it in the closet. It was old anyway. Old. I didn't scream. I didn't cry in front of her. I picked the quilt up off the floor, folded it, and took it with me. But that day, when I got home, I didn't just write in the notebook. I took photos. Photos of the quilt ruined with paint stains. Photo of the label embroidered with my mother's name. And I kept it all, because something inside me had woken up. Something that told me I wasn't going to let this pass in silence forever. I was going to need those proofs. I didn't know what for yet, but I knew I would need them. 2 months after the quilt episode, Robert showed up at my house. It was a weekday, in the morning. That was already strange. He never missed work. He came in, sat at the kitchen table, and fidgeted with his phone without speaking. Son, did something happen? He took a deep breath. Mom, I need a loan. My heart tightened. How much? $40,000. I had to sit down too. $40,000 was not a small amount. It was almost everything I had saved in the bank. Savings from years. Money I was gathering for my medication, for an emergency, for the future. For what, Robert? Jessica opened a clothing boutique, a partnership with a friend of hers. But the friend backed out at the last minute, and now the money Jessica invested is tied up in the contract. If we don't pay the other partner's share, we lose everything. And the bank? Can't you get a business loan? Mom, banks take too long. We need the cash this week. I'll pay you back in 6 months. With interest if you want, I promise. I looked at my son. I saw the anxiety on his face. I saw that he was desperate. Okay, I will help you. He hugged me tight. Thanks, Mom. I swear I won't let you down. The next day, I went to the bank. I withdrew $40,000 from my savings. Money that took me 8 years to gather. Every bill there represented a hem sewn, an extra job, a bill I didn't pay for myself, so I could save. I took the cashier's check to his apartment. Robert signed a handwritten receipt on a piece of notebook paper, promising to repay in 6 months. Jessica was in the living room. She took the envelope, counted the money in front of me, and didn't even look me in the eye. Thanks, Martha. Thanks. As if I had given her a tip. 6 months passed. Nothing. I called Robert. Son, it's been 6 months. Mom, the store is just starting up. We don't have profits yet. Give me a little more time. But you promised. I know, Mom. But I can't pull money out of thin air. Relax. You'll get your money. Relax. As if $40,000 were pocket change. Another 3 months passed. I called again. Robert, it's been 9 months. Mom, for the love of God, stop hounding me. I'll pay when I can. You're acting like a loan shark. Loan shark. He called me a loan shark for wanting my money back. I hung up and stared at the phone. That phrase echoed in my head. That was when I decided to investigate. I went on Jessica's Instagram. She always posted everything, every new outfit, every restaurant, every trip. And that was where I saw it. 3 weeks after I lent them the money, she posted a photo of a handbag, a designer bag, $5,000 on the website. 2 weeks later, a new phone, top of the line, over $1,000. A month later, photos of a weekend at a lodge in Aspen, Colorado, room with a fireplace, fine dining, expensive wine. I saved everything. Screenshots of every post, date, time, caption. And I went further. I looked for Jessica's so-called clothing boutique. I found the Instagram, 3 posts, no movement. It didn't even look like it was operating. I called my neighbor, Mrs. Higgins, who understands these things about the internet and business licenses. I asked her to investigate. Martha, this store doesn't have an active business license. I searched the state records. It doesn't exist. My blood ran cold. $40,000. There was no store. There was no partnership. There was no friend who backed out. It was a lie. They took my money and spent it on luxuries and appearances. While I was eating noodles and eggs every day to save money, I opened the drawer where I kept the notebook. I pasted all the printed screenshots. I noted the dates. I kept the receipt signed by Robert. And for the first time, I thought of a word that had never crossed my mind before regarding family: lawyer. Robert's birthday was at a nice restaurant downtown. Nothing too fancy, but upscale. He insisted on inviting me. He said he wanted the whole family together. I brought a simple gift, a dress shirt I knew he liked. I arrived before the scheduled time, waited at the door. When I entered, there were already about 15 people. Work friends, cousins, Jessica's family. They sat me at the end of the table, far from Robert. Jessica was in the center, laughing loudly, telling stories. She was wearing a new dress. Expensive. I recognized the brand because I had seen it at the mall last week. $3,000 in the window. I stayed quiet, eating slowly, trying not to bother anyone, until someone asked about the clothing store. "So Jessica, how's the business going?" She made a dramatic face. "Oh, it's tough. We invested a lot, but the return hasn't come yet. It was a heavy investment." I felt the blood rising to my face, but I took a deep breath. I wasn't going to make a scene there, except her cousin insisted. "But you guys managed to open, right? I heard you took out a big loan." Jessica looked at Robert. He lowered his head. "It wasn't a loan," she said. "It was family help." Help. $40,000 turned into help. I couldn't take it. It wasn't help. It was a loan, with a promise of repayment. The noise at the table dropped. Some people looked at me. Jessica turned her face slowly. "Excuse me, Martha?" I said it wasn't help. It was a loan. It's been 10 months and I haven't seen a cent back. Robert tried to intervene. "Mom, this isn't the time." "Then when is the time, Robert? When are you going to pay me back what you promised?" Jessica threw her napkin on the table. "I can't believe you're doing this at his birthday. You really have no sense of decency, do you?" "Decency? I worked 8 years to save that money. You took it and spent it on frivolities. I saw the photos. The bag, the phone, the trip. Are you stalking me now? Watching my social media? That's absurd. I just want my money back, Jessica." She stood up. Her voice came out high, sharp, furious. "You know what? I'm tired of this. Tired of this collection agency act, this pressure, this control. Don't you understand that we have our own lives? That we don't have to report to you all the time?" The entire restaurant was looking now. "Jessica, lower your voice," Robert asked. But she didn't lower it. "No, Robert. Enough. Your mother needs to understand her place. She doesn't run your life anymore. She has no importance here. She is just a useless old woman who keeps collecting, collecting, collecting." Useless old woman. The silence fell like a weight. No one moved. No one breathed. Andrew, my son-in-law, dropped his fork. Aunt Beatrice stared at her plate as if she had been the one to hear that. I looked at Robert, waiting for him to say something, to defend me, to ask her to stop. But he just lowered his head. I stood up slowly, grabbed my purse, left the gift on the table, and walked out. No one came after me. I got home. It was almost midnight. I don't remember the way back clearly. I just remember walking slowly, clutching my purse tightly, feeling the cold night air hitting my face. I entered, locked the door, and went straight to the bedroom. I sat on the edge of the bed. I looked at the vanity mirror. That woman looking back at me seemed to be 100 years old, tired, broken, a useless old woman. The tears came. They weren't calm tears. They were sobs. The kind that hurt your chest, that cut your breath, that make you fold your body forward because you can't hold it in anymore. I cried until I had no strength left. I slept in my clothes. Woke up at 5 in the morning with my body aching and my head heavy. I went to the kitchen, made coffee, sat at the table, and I thought. I thought about everything I had done, all the sacrifices, all the money, all the time, all the love. I thought about Anthony's ring that I sold, about the car I bought, about the wedding catering I paid for, about the $40,000 they stole from me. Stole, because now I could call it by its right name. It wasn't a loan gone wrong, it was theft. And I thought about my mother's quilt thrown on the floor, stained with paint, about the humiliations, the invisible Christmas, the party I wasn't invited to, about all the times I swallowed it and pretended it didn't hurt. I drank the coffee slowly, and then I stood up. I went to the bedroom closet, opened the door, and took out the old shoebox that was in the back, the box where I kept the notebook, the receipts, the screenshots, the photos. I put everything on the bed and started to organize. I separated by type: financial proof on one side, proof of humiliation on the other, messages and screenshots on a third. I grabbed a clear plastic folder from the drawer, one with dividers. I put everything in the right place. First, the receipt signed by Robert, $40,000, repayment in 6 months, his handwriting, his signature. Second, screenshots of Jessica's Instagram, $5,000 bag, $1,000 phone, weekend in Aspen, all with the date. Third, Mrs. Higgins' research showing the store had no license, that it never really existed. Fourth, photo of my mother's quilt stained with paint, the embroidered label visible. Fifth, notes from the notebook, every date, every humiliation, every exclusion. I didn't know if this would serve for anything, but it was all there, organized, documented. Then I grabbed paper and pen and started doing the math. Anthony's ring, $2,800 back then. In today's value, maybe $4,000. Car down payment, $6,000. Wedding catering, $5,000. Stolen loan, $40,000. I added it up, and the number that appeared made me freeze. $55,000. $55,000 that I gave to my son. $55,000 that I took from my life, from my future, from my security, and in exchange, humiliation, disrespect, invisibility. I closed the folder with the evidence, put it inside a sturdy tote bag, and then, for the first time in months, I felt something different inside me. It wasn't anger. It wasn't sadness. It was clarity. I had spent my whole life giving myself, sacrificing myself, believing that a mother's love meant giving everything without expecting anything. But now I understood. Love is not allowing abuse. Love is not accepting humiliation. Love is not letting people walk all over you and still smiling. I had the right to defend myself. I had the right to seek what was mine. I had the right to demand respect. And that was exactly what I was going to do. I grabbed my phone, Googled Family Lawyer Chicago. Several names appeared, big firms, small ones, specialized ones. I chose one that had good reviews. I wrote down the number. On Monday, at 8 in the morning, I was going to call, and I was going to start my fight back. On Monday, at 8 sharp, I called the office. A receptionist answered. I explained that I needed a consultation. She scheduled it for Wednesday, 10 in the morning. I spent the next 2 days reviewing everything again, checking if anything was missing, mentally rehearsing what I was going to say. When Wednesday came, I dressed in my simplest but neatest clothes: black slacks, white blouse, closed shoes. I took the folder with the proofs and went. The office was in a commercial building downtown, 7th floor. Small office, but organized. There was a desk, 2 chairs, a bookshelf full of law books. The lawyer entered. Man in his 50s, gray hair, reading glasses hanging around his neck. Martha, nice to meet you. Henry Davis. He shook my hand firmly and offered me a chair. You can call me Martha. All right then, Martha. Tell me what's going on. I took a deep breath and told him everything. I spoke of Anthony, of the years of work, of the sacrifices, of Robert, of the wedding, of Jessica, of the humiliations, of the money, of the lie about the store, of the scene at the restaurant. He was taking notes, without interrupting, just listening. When I finished, I opened the folder and put everything on the table. I brought proof. Attorney Davis took the receipt signed by Robert, looked at it with attention. This is valid. It has a date, amount, signature. It's a promissory note. Then he took the Instagram screenshots. He went through them one by one. You documented this well. Dates match, amounts fit. This shows bad faith. He took the photo of the quilt, frowned. Does this have sentimental value? It was my mother's. Took 2 years to make. It's the only thing I had left of her. He noted, pain and suffering, destruction of property with emotional value. He spent another 10 minutes analyzing everything. When he finished, he took off his glasses and looked at me. Martha, you have a case, and a strong one. My heart raced. But I need to ask you something. What do you want with this? Do you want the money back? Do you want to punish them? Do you want them to just respect you? I thought before answering. I want what is mine. I want justice. And I want them to understand that I am not invisible. He nodded. Then let's build a plan, and it won't be just legal. It will be complete. He grabbed a legal pad and started writing. First, legal level. We will file a civil suit for debt collection against Robert. The receipt is sufficient proof. Besides that, we can ask for damages for the public humiliation. Do you have witnesses? There were about 15 people at the restaurant. Great. We'll need at least 3 names, people who were there and can confirm what Jessica said. I noted mentally, Andrew, Aunt Beatrice, Jessica's cousin. Second, social level. We are going to notify them extrajudicially before going to court. A formal demand letter via certified mail. It's a formal letter saying you are demanding payment. This will give them a scare. It will show you are not playing around. And if they don't pay, then we file the lawsuit. And when they get served, it will be official, public. It will be on their record. And if they don't defend themselves properly, we can garnish wages or put a lien on assets. He continued. Third, emotional level. You need to establish boundaries. If Robert calls, you answer, but you don't yield. Don't let him manipulate. Don't accept crying, empty promises, or emotional blackmail. You have a position now, and you will maintain that position. I was absorbing every word. How long will this take? Depends. If they pay upon receiving the demand letter, it solves in a month. If it goes to court, it can take 6 months to a year. But with the evidence you have, I believe they will want to settle. No one wants a family lawsuit going public. He flipped through the notes again and stopped. Martha, one more thing. You said you are a widow. Is Robert an only child? Yes. And did your husband leave any inheritance? House, land, any asset? He left the house. Where I live. It's in my name and Robert's name. 50% each. Attorney Davis leaned forward. And you know that if you wanted to sell your share, you can? Or if you wanted to force a partition action, you can also? I hadn't thought of that. But it's the house where I live. Exactly. And if they ever try to kick you out, you have legal right to stay. But the opposite is also true. You can demand he buys your share, or sells his share to you. That is one more card up your sleeve. A card up the sleeve. I like the expression. So, what do I do now? Now you sign a retainer with me. I prepare the demand letter, send it to both Robert and Jessica, and we wait for the response. If they don't pay in 10 days, we file the suit. He pushed a paper in my direction. Fee agreement. Fair rates. Payment plan. I signed. When I left the office at 11:30 in the morning, I wasn't the same woman who had entered. I had a plan. I had an ally. I had proof. And for the first time in years, I had control of my own story. The demand letter went out on Friday. Attorney Davis sent it via certified mail, return receipt requested. Robert signed for it on Saturday at 9 in the morning. Jessica at 10:15. 10 days to respond, 10 days to pay or present a defense. I waited. I organized the house, sewed some pieces that were sitting there, tried to maintain a normal routine. But inside, I counted every hour. On the 3rd day, Robert called. I answered. Mom, what is this? A legal letter? Are you suing us? His voice was altered, mixture of anger and desperation. I am collecting what is mine, Robert, the $40,000 you promised to return. But there was no need for this. We could have talked. I tried to talk. You called me a loan shark, remember? Silence. Mom, Jessica is desperate. She thinks you're going to ruin her reputation. Her reputation? And mine, Robert? What do you think happened to my name when she called me a useless old woman in front of everyone? He tried to argue, tried to make promises, tried to ask for more time. I didn't yield. 10 days, son, or you pay or I file the suit. I hung up. My hands trembled afterwards. But I didn't cry. I had passed the point of crying. The 10 days passed. No deposit. No formal answer. The following Monday, Henry Davis called me. Martha, they didn't pay. I'm filing the complaint today. And there's another thing. They requested a meeting. They want to talk personally, with you and me present. My stomach tightened. When? Thursday, 3 p.m., here at the office. I agreed. I spent the week preparing myself. On Wednesday night, I picked out my clothes. Nothing flashy. Nothing that looked like I was trying to impress. Black slacks, white long-sleeve blouse, black closed shoes. Simple, firm. I slept little. Woke up early. Drank coffee slowly. Grabbed the folder with the proofs again. Checked everything. Every paper in its place. Every proof organized. I looked in the mirror. The woman looking back at me wasn't the one from the birthday dinner anymore. She wasn't the one who accepted silently anymore. She wasn't invisible anymore. I repeated mentally what I was going to say, without screaming, without crying, without losing control. Firm, clear, direct. I left the house at 2. The office was 40 minutes by bus. On the way, I looked out the window. Chicago passed by quickly. Buildings, cars, people rushing, life going on for everyone. But for me, that day was different. That day was going to define a lot of things. I got off the bus 2 blocks away, walked slowly, breathing deeply, feeling the cold wind on my face. When I arrived in front of the building, I stopped, looked up, 7th floor, mirrored windows. In there were Robert and Jessica, waiting, and I wasn't afraid anymore. I entered. The elevator rose slowly. Every floor seemed to last an eternity. When the door opened on the 7th, I took a deep breath and stepped out. The receptionist recognized me. Martha, they have already arrived. Mr. Davis asked for you to go in. I pushed the door to the conference room. Robert was sitting in a chair, arms crossed, looking at the floor. Jessica was next to him, fidgeting with her phone, legs crossed, face of someone who didn't want to be there. Attorney Davis was behind the desk, standing. Good afternoon, Martha. Sit here next to me. I sat, placed the folder on the table, hands steady. Robert looked at me. He had dark circles under his eyes. Looked like he hadn't slept well. Mom? Robert. My voice came out calm. Calmer than I expected. Attorney Davis began. Well, since we are all here, let's get straight to the point. Martha is legally claiming the amount of $40,000 regarding the loan made 10 months ago, with a promise of repayment in 6 months. Up to this moment, no value has been returned. Furthermore, there is a claim for damages for emotional distress due to public humiliation. Jessica let out a short laugh, mocking. Emotional distress? Seriously? I looked at her, direct. Seriously. Martha, with all due respect, you are blowing this out of proportion. It was an argument. It happens in all families. You called me a useless old woman, in front of 15 people, at my son's birthday. She rolled her eyes. I was nervous. You were asking me for money at a time that wasn't appropriate. Wasn't appropriate? It's been 10 months that you haven't paid. When would be appropriate? Robert shifted in his chair. Mom, we're going to pay. But there was no need for all this. Lawyers, lawsuits. This is going to stain our credit. I opened the folder. Slowly. Stain your credit? I pulled out the receipt signed by him, placed it on the table. Is this your signature? He looked, swallowed hard. It is. You promised 6 months. How many months have passed? 10. How many times did I ask you politely? Silence. How many, Robert? Several. And what did you answer me the last time? He lowered his head. Speak, son. What did you call me when I asked for my money back? His voice came out low. Loan shark. Jessica looked to the side, uncomfortable. I took the second document, the Instagram screenshots. 3 weeks after I lent you the money, you posted this. I put the photo of the bag in front of her. $5,000. Jessica opened her mouth to speak. I didn't let her. 2 weeks later, new phone, over 1,000. I put the print on top of the other. A month later, weekend in Aspen, hotel, restaurant, tours, more prints on the table. Robert looked at the papers, and I saw it. I saw the exact moment he understood. You told me you needed the money to save the store, that it was urgent, that it was an investment. I took Mrs. Higgins' paper, the business license search. The store doesn't exist, never had an active license, never opened, was never real. I put the paper on the table with force. You lied. You took my money, which I saved in 8 years of work, and spent it on luxury, while I ate noodles and eggs every day to save. Jessica tried to defend herself. We were going to open the store. We just changed the plan. Change the plan? My voice rose. I didn't lend you money to change plans. I lent it for a specific business, with a promise of repayment, signed. Attorney Davis stepped in. That is called theft by deception, Jessica. Obtaining property by deceit. It carries criminal penalties. Jessica's face went white. Robert passed a hand over his face. Mom, for the love of God, it doesn't need to reach this point. No? I took the photo of the quilt. And this here? My mother's quilt. Do you remember it, Robert? He looked at the photo, closed his eyes. She took 2 years making it, stitch by stitch. It was the last thing she made before dying. It was the only physical memory I had of her. I pushed the photo toward Jessica. You used it to protect the floor from paint. And when I asked, you said it was old anyway. Jessica didn't answer. She just kept looking at the paper. And there's more. I opened the notebook. I wrote everything down, every humiliation, every time you excluded me, used me, discarded me. I turned the pages. Here, Christmas. You threw a party and left me in the corner, invisible. No one spoke to me. No one gave me a ride home. Here, your mother's birthday, Jessica. 60 people, I wasn't invited, but my son was there. Here, condo renovation. You stayed in my house for a month. I became the maid. And you laughed about it on the phone with your friend. I closed the notebook. I have witnesses. I have proof. I have dates. I have everything. Robert had his head in his hands. Jessica looked at the table, pale. Attorney Davis took a new paper. Now let's get to what matters. Amounts. $40,000 for the loan. Adjusted for inflation. $44,000. Pain and suffering for public humiliation. $15,000. Damages for destruction of heirloom property. $5,000. Total $64,000. Jessica choked. $64,000? That is if we resolve this out of court. If we go to trial, there are court costs, attorney fees. It could reach $80,000. Robert stood up. Mom, we don't have all that. Then sell something. The bag, the phone, take out a loan. I don't know, but I want what is mine. He tried to approach. Mom, I'm sorry. I messed up. I admit it. But you can't destroy us like this. I stood up too, looked him in the eyes. I am not destroying anyone, Robert. I am defending myself. There is a difference. But it's so much money. It was so much love, too, and you threw it away. The room fell silent. Jessica finally spoke. Her voice came out low, without the arrogance from before. What if we pay in installments? Attorney Davis looked at me. I nodded. Installments over how long? 12 months? No. 6. About $10,000 a month, with a contract signed and notarized. If you miss one payment, I execute the entire judgment at once. They looked at each other. We need to think, Robert said. You have until tomorrow at 5 p.m., Attorney Davis replied. After that, I file the complaint. I grabbed my folder, stood up, looked at Robert one last time. You asked me once why I did everything I did for you. Remember? He didn't answer. I did it because I loved you, because I believed that love was giving everything without expecting anything. But I learned something, son. Love without respect is not love. It is exploitation. I turned my back and walked toward the door. Hand on the knob, I looked back one last time. And now you are going to learn that this useless old woman has much more value than you imagined. I left. The door closed behind me with a soft click. In the elevator going down, I didn't cry. I didn't tremble. I didn't feel heavy. I felt freedom. The next day, at 3 p.m, Robert called. Mom, we accept. 6 installments. We'll sign the contract. There was no elaborate apology. There was no crying. There was no promise of change. Only the acceptance of the inevitable. Attorney Davis will prepare the document. You sign it at the notary by Friday. Okay. Silence on the other end. Mom, can we talk? In person? After the first installment hits my account. We talk. I hung up. The first installment cleared on the 20th. $10,000. I looked at the statement and took a deep breath. It wasn't just money. It was recognition. It was justice. It was the proof that I wasn't invisible. The following installments cleared always on the right day. No delays, no excuses. By the third installment, Robert asked to see me. I accepted, but not at my house. At a coffee shop, mid-afternoon, with people around. He arrived punctually, sat in front of me. He seemed to have aged 10 years. "Mom, I wanted to apologize." I didn't answer right away, just looked at him. "I was wrong. I let Jessica treat you badly. I let you become invisible. I took your money and spent it on garbage. I was a terrible son." His voice was choked up, but I didn't give in to the impulse to comfort him. "Robert, you weren't a terrible son. You were a son who forgot who I was, who forgot what I did, who treated me as if I were disposable." "I know. And Jessica?" He sighed. "We are complicated. She didn't expect you to react. She thought you would just accept everything quietly, as always. And now? Now she's angry. At me, at you, at herself. We almost separated twice this month. I didn't feel pity. I didn't feel joy. I felt neutrality. Robert, I didn't do this to destroy your marriage. I did it to defend myself. I know, Mom, and I understand now. You were right about everything." I took a sip of coffee. "And what are you going to do?" "I'm going to finish paying what we owe, and I'm going to try to fix things, but it will take time, for her and for me. And with me?" He looked at me. "I wanted us to have a relationship again, but I know it will be different now, that I lost your trust, and that I'll have to earn it back." For the first time in that conversation, I felt something soften inside me. "I don't hate you, Robert, and I don't want to lose you, but I will also not accept disrespect anymore. Not from you, not from Jessica, not from anyone. I understand. If you want to rebuild a relationship with me, it will have to be on my terms, with boundaries, with respect, with truth. I accept." We finished the coffee in silence. It wasn't a heavy silence. It was a silence of acceptance. When he left, I stayed sitting a while longer, looking out the window, watching life pass by outside, and for the first time in years, I felt light. 6 months later, the last installment cleared, $64,000 back. It wasn't the fortune I had put into his life over the years, but it was enough to recover my dignity. I took a part of that money and did something I had never done. I spent it on myself. I bought a new sewing machine, a modern Bernina with various stitches that makes the work easier. I bought beautiful fabrics, quality thread. I reupholstered the living room chair that had been broken for 2 years, and I went back to sewing, not out of necessity, for pleasure. I made a new quilt, not the same as my mother's. Nothing would replace that, but a quilt of my own, with the colors I liked. With the stitches I chose, it took 3 months, and when I finished, I folded it carefully and put it in the closet. Kept, protected, mine. Robert started coming to visit me again, once a month, always calling ahead, always respecting my space. Jessica didn't come, and I didn't ask. Some bridges you rebuild, others you simply accept were burned forever. He told me they were doing couples therapy, that they were trying. I encouraged him, but I kept my distance. Because I had learned the most important thing a woman can learn. I don't need to be at the center of anyone's life to have value. I have value by myself. Today, when I look back, I don't regret anything. I don't regret suing my son. I don't regret collecting what was mine. I don't regret defending myself. Because in the end, it wasn't about money, it was about respect. It was about dignity. It was about showing that a 62-year-old woman, a widow, a seamstress, has as much right to be treated with dignity as anyone else. We spend our whole lives believing that a mother's love is sacrificing without limits, that it is giving everything, that it is accepting everything. But it isn't. True love has boundaries. It has respect. It has reciprocity. And when those boundaries are broken, we have the right to defend ourselves. We have the right to say no. We have the right to demand what is ours. It doesn't matter the age. It doesn't matter if it's a son, grandson, daughter-in-law, or son-in-law. No one, No one has the right to humiliate us and expect us to accept it quietly. If you are going through something similar, if you are being undervalued, excluded, humiliated, do not accept it. Do not stay quiet. Gather your proof. Seek your rights. Fight for what is yours. Because in the end, the only person who will defend you for sure is yourself. And that isn't selfishness. It is survival. It is dignity. It is self-love. And everyone deserves that. If this story touched you, comment here which city you are speaking from. And stay with me for the next videos that will appear there on the screen. Someone might need to hear this today.